While some BRICS and European leaders have tried to play the peacemaker between Kyiv and Moscow by offering various solutions, none has the credibility and the seniority like Prime Minister Modi to tackle the burning issue. To ensure that all stakeholders are on board, Prime Minister Modi briefed US President Joe Biden on August 25 and discussed the Ukraine war yet again when both met on September 21st on the sidelines of the Quad Summit. India, on its part, is not trying to impose any plan on both sides to stop the war, but only acting as an honest intermediary to carry messages between two enemy nations. Prime Minister Modi will now meet President Putin on October 22nd at Kazan on the sidelines of the BRICS summit and brief him personally about September 23rd New York meeting with President Zelensky. Even though India appears to be the best global bet to end the Ukraine war, Prime Minister Modi's mission is not easy. Speaking at an event titled India, Asia and the World in New York on September 24th evening, External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar gave a glimpse on how Prime Minister Narendra Modi was trying to play the pacificator to get warring sides, Russia and Ukraine, on the peace table to end the long drawn-out conflict in Eastern Europe. He pointed towards hectic, high-level diplomacy conducted by India between Russia and Ukraine while keeping major powers like US in the loop with the objective of ending the Ukraine war. On September 23rd, Prime Minister Narendra Modi met Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky for the third time in 4 months to keep him abreast of discussions with Russian President Vladimir Putin on how to stop the conflict and negotiate for peace. This was after Modi's National Security Advisor Ajit Kumar Doval met President Putin on September 12th and briefed the Russian President on the outcome of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Ukraine on August 23rd. To ensure that all stakeholders are on board, Prime Minister Modi briefed US President Joe Biden on August 25 and discussed the Ukraine war yet again when both met on September 21st on the sidelines of the Quad Summit in Wilmington, Delaware. Prime Minister Modi also had telephonic conversation with Russian President Vladimir Putin on August 27. PM Modi and President Putin exchanged perspectives on the Ukraine-Russia conflict as the Indian Prime Minister reiterated India's firm commitment to support an early and peaceful resolution to the conflict. Prime Minister Modi will now meet President Putin on October 22nd at Kazan on the sidelines of the BRICS summit and brief him personally about September 23rd New York meeting with President Zelensky. Remember, neither PM Modi nor President Putin will be taking part in the SCO Heads of Government Summit in Islamabad on October 15-16th. The 4 points pursued by Prime Minister Narendra Modi on the Ukraine issue are: war is not the way of settling disputes in this day and age. A solution to the crisis will not come from the battlefield, as neither side can be decimated in the theater of war. Peace will have to be negotiated, and the negotiators must include all stakeholders and cannot be one-sided. India, on its part, is not trying to impose any plan on both sides to stop the war, but only acting as an honest intermediary to carry messages between two enemy nations with the ultimate objective of bringing both the leaders on the peace table. Let me tell you, the Indian effort is not merely limited to conveying messages, as I am told that there is a definite plan which India thinks is workable to both the sides. While some BRICS and European leaders have tried to play the peacemaker between Kyiv and Moscow by offering various solutions, none has the credibility and the seniority like Prime Minister Modi to tackle the burning issue. PM Modi is a close personal friend of President Putin, and the two share huge trust with each other. Since PM Modi took over in May 2014, the two leaders have been constantly in touch and have spent umpteen hours together discussing global issues and bilateral issues. Prime Minister Modi has also managed to bond with President Zelensky since he met Ukrainian leader on the sidelines of G7 summit in Italy in June. I am told that Prime Minister Narendra Modi had very good discussions with President Zelensky in Italy and in New York. President Zelensky was in his own mood when Prime Minister Modi went to Ukraine, but the two sat down and had 2.5 hours of conversation on August 23rd. Simply put, PM Modi, being the longest serving leader in the democratic world, carries the gravitas and the weight to put an end to the bloodshed in Eastern and Central Europe. External Affairs Minister Jaishankar put it succinctly when he said at the New York event that India does not have any peace plan or suggestions. He said, "We are having these conversations and sharing them with the other side." My sense is that both the leaders appreciate it. We think if these conversations are helpful, then there is something that we could do. We could make a contribution. This was what he said at the Asia Society event. Even before this peace diplomacy started, Prime Minister Narendra Modi's friend and French President Emmanuel Macron had a firm belief that India could play a role in ending the Ukraine war and help mitigate concerns of the global south. My understanding is that National Security Advisor Ajit Doval will be meeting President Macron on October 30th on the sidelines of bilateral strategic dialogue and brief the French president also about what India is doing on the Ukraine war issue. It is important that the pacificator diplomacy undertaken by Prime Minister Modi leads the warring parties to a negotiating table as US and Western powers are threatening to allow Ukraine to use long-range missiles to strike deep inside Russian territory. This move, if approved, will not only lead to vertical escalation, with President Putin threatening a bigger missile retaliation against the entire NATO. If this were to happen, then the entire world will get embroiled in a war with global dimensions. Even though President Zelensky and the anti-Russian media in the West passed sarcastic observations when Prime Minister Narendra Modi hugged President Putin in Moscow, India has been an avid advocate of protecting sovereignty and integrity of nations, as has been reiterated in the BRICS Goa Declaration, with both Russia and China on board. While India has consistently refrained from condemning Russian war on Ukraine, Prime Minister Modi has told President Putin clearly that this was not the era of war. The Modi government has also denied reports that Indian-made artillery shells were being diverted by its European customers to Ukraine, despite serious objections from Russia. The Indian Foreign Ministry called the report speculative and misleading, as the Modi government has assiduously kept out a war effort on both sides. While the Western media has been targeting India for buying oil and arms from Russia and hence letting Moscow off the hook on the Ukraine war, the fact is that India has no options but to keep the pipeline going, as both issues are linked to its national security. Global oil prices will rise if India stops buying oil from Russia, and the most populous country in the world will be hit with inflation. Indian national security will be compromised as Moscow is still the biggest defense partner of India, with Indian armed forces having 60% of Russian equipment as its hardware. Indian reliance on Russian military hardware goes way back 5 decades when America and the West decided to arm Pakistan in the name of strategic parity with India. Even though India appears to be the best global bet to end the Ukraine war, Prime Minister Modi's mission is not easy, as both sides are not willing to make any territorial compromises. Russia, with its vast natural resources at its disposal, can face up to West-imposed sanctions, and its thriving military-industrial complex can still take the war to the enemy. Ukraine, backed by the West, can carry on the war with Democrats in power in Washington. But this could totally change if Republican candidate Donald Trump comes to power, as he could directly reach out to Putin to stop the conflict, and the territorial status quo will be forced on Kyiv. Under these circumstances, the best option is for both sides to use Prime Minister Modi's neutrality and credibility and sort out the matter across the negotiating table in a third country. Third country could also be India. The UK and the EU, including Switzerland and Austria, have sanctioned Russia, with the Bergenstock Resort Peace Summit turning out to be a flop in June with no Moscow representative present. US and Russian relationship under Biden are in deep freeze. Efforts made by countries like Saudi Arabia have failed. China has been accused by Ukraine of actively helping the Moscow's war machine against Kyiv, and Brazil has been accused by Zelensky of siding with Putin. India, under Prime Minister Narendra Modi, is the only viable option. Namaskar.